good.
Change is the only constant. This phrase is a cliche, but it has stood the test of the time. Everything around us is constantly evolving. It includes the food scenario as well. To talk about the changing culinary landscape of India, I have with me Charmaine O'Brien, who also happens to be one of my favorite food writers. And Charmaine has come up with a new book, Eating the Present, Tasting the Future, Exploring India through her changing food. So thank you, Charmaine, for
thank
joining
you.
me for this special
My
food
pleasure,
walk.
pleasure.
And before we start, I must confess that your book, Flavors of Delhi, is a huge inspiration behind Delhi food walks. And in fact, it acted as a base for my deeper understanding of Delhi's food culture.
I know that's. I'm really thrilled that your wonderful business and what you've done with food through is from that book. I'm very humbled actually by that.
So in 2018, you came to this upscale market of South Delhi, Khan Market, and you came here to get some artwork framed.
Yes.
And you noticed back-to-back fancy cafes, then patisserie, cake shops. So this place has changed a lot.
So what I noticed was I'd come here because there was an art framer that I'd been using for a long time, and I came here to pick something up in January. And then that same year I came back, probably October, November, and the picture framer had gone, and there was a cake shop there. And then as I looked around, it was like there was about 3 other cake shops that just hadn't existed 8 months ago. And so of course, being curious about food and about change, I thought, well, what's going on here? This is really interesting. So then I started, when I started interviewing people for the new book, I asked them, I started asking people, why have all these cakes suddenly appeared? So then that got my curiosity going, and so I asked, and one of the things that people told me was they thought that Australian MasterChef had a huge influence on that, and you know, I put forward that perhaps they'd said that to me because I was an Australian, but that's really not the case. You know, as you know, MasterChef Australian MasterChef was a massive success here. I mean, it's huge. So it did have a lot of impact. So I think that cakes emerging it's not just about MasterChef. Like any change in food, it's a convergence of a whole lot of other things. So most change in food is driven by economic change, because if people have more disposable income, they can afford to try things because they can afford to take a chance. And if they don't like it, it's not a big deal because they've got enough to buy something else. And so when you come to things like these lovely ladurée macaroons, I mean, they're an indulgence, they're a treat. So you have to be able to, first of all, afford that extra to have these sort of things. That combined with, Indians love sweet things, like it's a kind of, again, a cliche, but that Indians in general, not all Indians, have a particular sweet tooth. There's a lot of cultural associations with sugar. India is one of the very earliest producers of cane sugar. You were growing it a very, very long time ago. You also have a lot of sweet foods associated with, with the various Hindu gods. So it's got a, what's the word? Like it's prasad, or yeah. So it's got that as an offering. It's got that association with it. I mean, Ganesh has those. He has the sweet rice cakes with him.
Modak and laddu.
Modak, and laddus. So there's a lot of. There's already, and I mean, India has a enormous, probably as yet totally undocumented for everything, array of its own sweet products. So that background's there, and then you get TV shows like MasterChef, where there was a big emphasis on, the fine patisserie, and the there was two particular pastry cooks on that, Adrian Zumbo, and I off the top of my head, I can't remember the other person's name, but a very interesting. Her name was Anna. They became megastars in Australia as well because of this interest in desserts and sweets and all this. And one of the reasons I think that is it's very fine work. It's very pretty, it's attractive, it looks good in a visual medium. And so you've got that blending with social media. Because, a bowl of pasta doesn't necessarily look that great, but these sweet, these look beautiful, look how pretty they are. Later I've been making macaroons long before social media existed. Yeah. So a long time ago, but they've always had that, they're pretty. So when people started going out and eating things and taking photos of them, these became a massive hit because they look so beautiful and the stores are beautiful. So there's that element to it. That also has to converge with people having the skills to do this kind of fine work. And so once I started talking to people, there were quite a lot of Indians who obviously had their own interests but probably also saw this coming, and they went off to places like Le Cordon Bleu in Paris. They came to Australia to do like pastry chef courses, and also in your own catering schools in India they went off to do these courses. So people had a vision about what they could see the market was ready for, and then you get this massive boost of kind of, I suppose, inspiration of it from both television shows. And MasterChef's not the only one. You had the Great British Bake Off, and then you had those things like Chef's Table, the American shows. So, and then you've got social media. So people are looking for something pretty to take a picture of. So I think that's all come together. And look, we are in a market that's people. It's an upmarket market. It's expensive, so people come here. They like to perhaps spend some hours here. So going into a cafe, having a lovely cup of tea or a coffee and a lovely treat is also part of that whole experience.
So you first visited India in 1995.
Yes.
And in 1991, economic liberation of Indian economy had just started. And we are in 2023, and India is recognized as a global power now. So how has the food scenario changed since then?
Well, so when I first came to India in 1995, India was still, economic liberalisation only been around, they'd just been formally, put into motion. So I saw an India that was still, a very socialist kind of, economy and quite a frugal way of life. So one of the big changes is when I first came, in terms of having like imported foods, like maybe something like this, good chocolate, good olive oil, good wine. It was very elite, like to get imported foods, they were very expensive and they weren't very available. So that's that's a big change. So now all that kind of, I'm going to say imported food, let's say Western style food is really much more widely available. But it's not just that, it's now that there's any kind of, or most Western foods, there's now Indian versions of it being made. So there's Indian chocolate, there's Indian wine, there's any kind of, like a gluten-free food or a banana bread. It's all really good Indian-made stuff. Like India's making really good versions of pretty much everything. Same thing's happening with millets. Millets are a superfood now, but you've always had them. And not that long ago, they were poor people's food. So that's a big shift around taking these kind of global food trends and producing those sort of foods yourself, but also then rebranding Indian things that have been here forever. And to me, it's like this whole new food culture in India, and it's what I call a globalized food culture. So it's got the foods that you can get anywhere around the world, but it's also got all the concepts, the wellness concepts, the gluten-free, the superfood, I don't think paleo is a big thing here, but keto became a big, keto became a big thing. Dairy-free, sugar-free's been around in India for a long time. What you do have, but you've always had it, is egg-free. You know, there's a big focus on having egg-free cakes and things, which you don't see certainly you don't see in Australia, and I presume you probably wouldn't see them in a lot of other Western countries. But now you've got all the cake shops that are advertising that they've also got egg-free items. No, they're really good. I mean, they're very fine, as you say. They've been but even the existence of this brand here. I mean, making the kebab like that, it just reminds me of like having sausage, having a sausage for breakfast. With some toast or whatever we'd have at home. But then you've got that Indian, got the Indian flavours, It's good. What do you think?
It's good. So in your book, you have mentioned social media, television and travel are connecting Indians more closely to the rest of the world and have influenced their adoption of homogeneous global food trends at the same time as increasing the enthusiasm amongst Indians for their own food ways and regional cuisines. So you have already talked about social media and TV. So maybe you can shed some more light on the travel part.
Yeah, so the travel, I mean, I think there's a few elements to travel, and again, it comes from increased economic prosperity, because you have to be able to afford to do it. But when I say travel, it's also about a lot of particularly younger Indians going overseas to study. Like, we have a huge number of young Indians come to Australia to study. People going to America and UK and also going to work. And I think, so they come to Australia, and Australia's got very much a casual cafe lifestyle in the sense that people do eat out a lot. It wouldn't be unusual for people to have breakfast, lunch and dinner out. I'm not saying everybody does that all the time, but a lot of eating out of breakfast, a lot of cafes where people will just go and have a coffee and something. And also, the other thing is that a lot of our cafes, you can have a glass of wine, just have a glass of wine. It's not a big deal, they're not expensive, and you get that all around, other countries. So I think people have experienced that lifestyle and then they want to bring it back here. So sometimes they're people that actually set things up, or when they see that here, they patronise it, and then they become popular, and so people open more options. So travel influences that taking on of a certain, again, this globalised lifestyle and particular foods and ways of like coming and having a coffee and a macaroon or having a glass of wine. But the other way travel's influencing food or has influenced food is internal travel. So it's so easy now to fly. Like you can fly just about anywhere. When I first came to India in '95, you could only really fly between the capital cities, and it was super expensive. So now it's really easy to fly anywhere. So that has come with also a discovery of regional food, which is another huge trend which I expect we will get to. So travel has influenced that, because Indians are discovering their own country now. They're seeing a lot of food travel on television. So even things like your
travel for food.
Yeah, you travel for food, and there's so much of that. So I think they're seeing that, and so that's inspiring to people to, when they travel, to look at local food. And then so they're discovering, Indians are discovering everything they've got themselves, which again, most diverse regional food in the world, and it's here for you. So that's how travel, I think, is influencing both taking on global trends and this interest in Indians' interest in their own food ways, and seeing more regional foods in restaurants.
Now we are at Sundar Nursery, Delhi's organic and lifestyle market. And the aim of this market is to spread awareness about personal well-being, health and environmental sustainability. And here we are going to meet Meenuji, who is from the Earth Collective, and she is going to show us around.
Fantastic.
Meenuji, namaste.
Namaste, Mini.
Charmaine, Meenuji.
Yeah. Come. So nice to see you.
I'm Jaya from Desi Utpad by Jaya, and I do farming in Himachal. So mainly I do intercropping with fruit orchards. I do grains, vegetables. You can taste our peaches, ma'am.
I'd love to. And so you come down every week?
My warehouse is in NCR, and I do deliveries, home deliveries here in Delhi NCR.
Oh, fantastic. So
Yeah.
people order online with you, or they come to the market and order?
Market plus online also.
Okay, great.
So every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'm in Delhi NCR. Tomorrow I'll go to my farm.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I have to look after both.
Yeah, so this is fabulous, absolutely farm fresh.
Farm
Yes,
fresh,
fresh
farm.
food.
Yesterday
Direct from
evenings, plucking.
Yeah.
Everything, every fresh produce
Yes.
is Saturday evenings plucking, and morning first thing here we sell here at Earth Collective.
And all seasonal, obviously.
Everything
Yeah.
seasonal only.
Yeah, oh, that sounds great. So it sounds like a 7-day-a-week occupation.
Yes, 24 hours.
Yeah.
24 hours,
Yeah,
365
definitely.
days.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
Charmaine, meet Pallavi. She's
Hello,
the
Pallavi. Oh, nice to meet
end all
you.
and be all of other organics. She's
Thank
been
you.
with us for a while, and she has
For
some
5 years.
really good old-fashioned, beautiful old-fashioned produce and products also. So the produce comes from her farm.
The vegetables are coming from Noida farm. The dals and the oils and the sattu is coming from my Bihar farm.
Oh, wow.
So we hail
Yeah,
from Bihar.
yeah.
So it comes from there, and there are all my atta, flours, and all the lentils. They're all stone ground. We
Yeah.
call it jata, and it's done that way. The rice is done by the dheki method, which is again something that my husband's mother, dadi, told us how to do that. Then the oils are all bull-driven oils. So yeah, the
Pallavi,
cookie.
show her the sattu pouches now.
The sattu pouch,
That's
yes.
the
This is a travel-friendly sattu drink. It's a stomach coolant.
Yes.
It's actually known as, in India, it's known as a poor man's meal. So you just pour it in a glass of 220 ml of water, chanch, buttermilk, anything, and just drink it. You'll be full, and it's low GI. It's
Yes.
excellent for diabetics. So it's a brilliant product.
And it's based on chickpea flour? is it?
Chickpea flour, yes.
Yeah.
Bengal,
Is it-
Bengal gram.
Bengal gram.
Yeah,
Okay.
not chickpea.
Okay.
Yeah. Bengal gram. Yeah. And it does excellent. It's got some Himalayan salt, some cumin powder, and all ingredients are mentioned here.
Okay.
And it's doing very, 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 very well.
Well, that's great. And where you obviously sell it here?
We sell it here. We sell it on retail shelves.
Okay.
We sell it on our own platform. We
Yeah.
are on Amazon, Flipkart, and a
Okay.
few other online platforms. Yeah.
okay.
This is a vegan product. I want to highlight that.
Yeah.
It's a vegan product and gives you same amount of protein as an egg gives you. A desi egg is 6 grams, 7 grams, and this has 6 grams, 7
Okay,
grams, one
oh, great.
packet.
I've grown up having
Yes,
sattu,
yeah.
puri, paratha as a drink as well. And you can see like many foods like sattu or you have bajra, they all have been part of Indian traditional food system.
Yes.
Now
definitely.
they have been nicely packaged
Yes,
with
yeah.
these new labels like gluten-free or vegan.
This is a big trend. This is what's happening, that these very traditional foods are being, they're already there. That this was always vegan, right?
Yeah.
So so you're fitting it into this new, the new things that people want to see with or around food.
and the convenience also, no?
Yeah. Slightly, potentially homogenise things a bit because people will go for convenience, but making these more traditional foods in this way also helps to keep those there rather than being pushed out by, I don't know, some American version of you know, something you can put in a, you know, put with a glass. Well, they're probably not with buttermilk because, you know, they just put it with milk. Anyway, I also love buttermilk, so I look forward to mixing this with some buttermilk. Thanks so much.
So I'd like you to
Namaste ma'am, namaste ma'am. Hello sir.
meet Sundar. He is one
Hello,
of our
Sundar.
farmers. Sundar, आप बात करिए.
मैम हम कंटिन्यू 3 साल से आ रहे हैं यहाँ पर। पहली बार हमने मैम के सहयोग से यहीं पर काम स्टार्ट किया है। हमारा दिल्ली में जो बेसिक काउंटर यही है। इसके अलावा हमारा 5 दिन का काम है, खेत में ही रहते हैं हम। खेत में सारी चीज़ों की देखभाल करते हैं। अभी हमने खेत में सब्जियां उगा रखी है, गेहूं की हार्वेस्टिंग चल रही है अभी, जिसका आटा अभी थोड़े टाइम में स्टार्ट हो जाएगा। कुछ चीज़ें और है, जैसे कि ये अनार है, इसका हम जूस बना रहे हैं। अनार है, मौसमी है, सीजनल जो सारी चीज़ें हम यहाँ पर लेकर आते हैं। वी यूज एवरीथिंग इन आवर फार्म, लाइक वी हैव 2-3 ट्री ऑफ द गुआवा, 1 tree of the pomegranate, then grapes, we have 1 tree of the grapes,
Oh, wow.
1
Yeah.
lemon,
Yeah.
nimbu tree we
Yeah.
have.
So you have a lot of
Chote, yeah.
diversity.
But in small area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And seasonal vegetables we grow in our farm.
Now you have met the rural farmer, you have also met the urban farmer, and you have traveled all over India for your book. So how stark is the divide between rural and urban India in terms of the awareness about the organic food?
I don't think the awareness, I think that farmers like, so that's what they do. Their food is organic, the way they're growing it. They've got, he's got a very diverse farm that I imagine is very seasonal, like you have things all through the year. So it's not that there's not an awareness. I mean, that is the way food has been grown in India, and there's still many, many smaller farmers that's how they grow it. The issue is that they're not, as I said, they're not necessarily putting those words around it that are now attracting a more contemporary consumer. But the other thing is Sundar says he sells his stuff most of the time in a local market, right? So that's not necessarily where he's going to get his best return, because, you know, he's in a smaller area, you know, people have you know, there's probably other farmers, etc. So I think it's just getting their produce to market and being able to market it for what it is that's appealing in the contemporary world. I think that's the thing. It's not that there's a lack of, there's absolutely no lack of understanding. I mean, all the organic methods that farmers have been using in India forever. The issue is those going away, which is what, you know, which is what the Green Revolution did. But that served another purpose. That saved a whole lot of people from starving. So let's, you know, it's got, so it's that. It's just how do you maintain small farms, allow farmers to earn a really, you know, a decent, proper living from it, and that will come by promoting the fact that this is organic, it's seasonal, you know, this is a diversity of food. How do you do that without ultimately really commercialising that system? That'll be the trick.
Here's Virasat.
Hi.
Muskan, and her mom-in-law is the expert who puts all these products together. They are the, I mean, really amazing traditional things, and they're coming back, thankfully, because she's almost sold out almost every day.
I was going through the Instagram page of Earth Collective,
Yes.
and there I came across this excerpt on this stall, Virasat. It says, Virasat is one such small business that curates sweets and savories using age-old recipes, passed down through generations, ensuring that every dish is healthy and delicious. Their ingredients are organically sourced, and every dish is made with love and blessings. Virasat is a celebration of quality, tradition, and authentic flavors, and they take pride in their legacy and wish to share their healthy snacks and sweets to satisfy all your cravings. Let them take you on a journey of nostalgia, where every bite reminds you of the joys of childhood and the flavors of home. And in your book, in great
I've
length,
written a lot about
you have talked
nostalgia.
about the topic of nostalgia.
Yeah.
How is this emotion being explored in the modern food space?
So nostalgia's always been a good, like, has always been a strong link with food and nostalgia. So I explored it actually from a psychological perspective, because I also have a psychology education, which is one of I think sort of one of the unique things I've brought to this book, because I'm bringing other perspectives on food, and psychology is one of them. Well, nostalgia is very altered. I mean, simple thing is nostalgia is quite comforting. So in a contemporary environment, particularly in big cities, things are fast. They're fast moving. Maybe there's a lot of people in the cities that are living away from home, and so having familiar foods is a way of, it's like a comfort, it's like it relaxes you. Nostalgia is almost always an emotion that makes you feel happy, because it takes you back to home, to your family, to somebody looking after you. Because nostalgia for food is very often about childhood, about people,
love.
Yeah, love, people looking after you, food being made for you, your mother or your grandmother fussing over what you were eating because it's good for you, which might have annoyed you at the time, but suddenly as an adult that seems really, really good. So that's a very simple explanation. The other thing about these foods is they take a lot of labour. So people don't now, if you're living a busy life, you don't want to do the labour, right? You love the food, you love the idea of it, you like the fact that somebody's mother's produced it, it doesn't have to be your mother. So people want that, but they don't necessarily want to do the work of it, which is where nostalgia and food meet in terms of it being an attractive as a product for people to buy it, because they want that feeling but they don't want to do the work. And they possibly are not living at home anymore, or their grandmother's no longer here, and that's why nostalgia's a thing. And it's always been a thing, but it is seems to be getting bigger at the moment. And certainly urban life is considered to be a big contributor to that rise in nostalgia.
So that's our typical Sunday brunch: puri, chole, sabji. Then you have sabudana bada, dahi bada, sattu paratha. With safed makhan, the white butter. So
And the drink, we had that lovely
buttermilk.
but we had another
that's
fantastic
rabri.
drink, rabri. That was
Rabri.
really delicious.
So
All right, so
your favorite dish is waiting for you.
I'm going to have this to start because I absolutely love sabudana.
And I'll start with puri. बहुत बढ़िया.
Very light.
So in your book you have mentioned about having chaat somewhere on the street side
In Delhi, yes.
Yeah. How was the experience?
So having that chart in Delhi in it would have been 1996 by the time, because I'd come in December 95, so it was January 96. Having that chart was one of the things that made me want to write about India's food, because I had never tasted anything like that.
Thank you, Miniji. Thank you for sharing your insights.
No, not at all. You're most welcome. I'm delighted that you both came today and had the experience of the Earth Collective.
Yes, thank you
And
so
we
much.
really, really look forward to seeing you more often for a start.
I'll keep
Anubhav,
coming, I'll keep
and
coming.
you definitely before you leave and whenever you're here, Charmaine.
Definitely, and thank you for that wonderful, and to everybody for that wonderful feast that you just gave us. It was really delicious.
It's a small glimpse of what India has to offer.
Definitely. And I look forward to coming and buying some subsies in a couple of weeks when I'm back in town.
I think it's a great place to understand about the urban food scenario.
Yes, yeah.
So I think everyone should come to this place.
Yeah.
Keeping it traditional.
Yeah, keeping it traditional.
Keeping it desi.
Chali. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So here we are at Amalta's Indian Tapas and Bar, and run by Chef Udit Maheshwari, and they serve regional food in tapas format, and more will be shared by the chef.
Hi, this looks great. Tell us. I'd love to hear some more about the dishes. I'm looking forward to eating them. So, but let's hear about them before I eat any of them.
So the first thing that you have there is from Gujarat, and Gujarati street food I think is amongst the most innovative things done in India. Every time you go and eat something, it will be something new. So what we've done is we've converted a traditional handwo into a sandwich bread, and we've stuffed that with spiced potato, tamarind chutney, some peanuts, and a chili garlic chutney. The next thing that you have there is our version of a very simple Ladakhi pancake, which is called kisir. You have topped it with, it's made with buckwheat, which comes from Ladakh. We have topped it with mushrooms that are locally sourced and cheese that is made by a company run by women in Chennai. And the third thing that you have there is our version of a chaat. It's a jalebi chaat, so jalebis are normally eaten as a dessert, but we have turned that on its head and made it completely savory, topped it with spiced yogurt, chutneys, and safe.
That looks good. The cheese thing's interesting in India now. That there's all this local, a whole lot of cheeses being made locally. Although India has, a history of having cheeses, it's just that I think they're kind of been hidden a bit. Like people don't associate cheese with India, except for paneer. But there's a real explosion now of let's say European style cheeses being made here, and they're being made really well.
They're being made quite well. In fact, India has a history of cheeses. Like we were taught by the Portuguese traders who came out to make cheeses. So we used to make a couple of cheeses. They've again gone to the background now. They're
coming forward now.
Forward a little bit. We are making a lot of European cheeses, making them quite well.
Yes.
And much better than the imported cheeses that we get here because they're a lot fresher, a lot, and obviously more affordable.
And then, of course, here's a different grain. People associate India with kind of, rice and wheat eating. And here we've got buckwheat. That I also know is extensively used in the colder parts of the country, which is probably potentially a bit of a revelation even for Indians to have these sort of foods that they're not familiar with.
So unfortunately, buckwheat is eaten predominantly only during these 9 holy fasting days amongst Hindus. Otherwise, it's just shunned to the pantry and then it's again bought out when the festivals come around. But it's delicious. It's quite nutrient rich and it's nutty, and it's a completely different thing to wheat. And it's eaten a lot in the mountains here for sustenance and nourishment.
So so apart from the food looks delicious and I'm dying to try it, but what I was interested in asking was, why, so this is a focus here on bringing lots of different regional foods in. What inspired you to do that? Why do you think now's the right time to do that?
I think now Indians are slowly appreciating, how good their own food is, and they're trying to eat out more. There's become greater awareness, and thanks to COVID, you saw a lot of home chefs who were making their local food, their kitchen food, and sending it to people. So there's a lot of awareness about Indian, different Indian food, which is increasing. There's also the curiosity that, what do you get in a far-flung place like Ladakh, or what do you get in the northeast of India? People want to eat that, and I think people have gotten a little tired of eating the same Indian food that you used to get in restaurants everywhere. So I think this is the perfect time to introduce people to other flavors, other tastes, and other produce of India.
So I asked that because there's a whole chapter, the first chapter in my latest book is about the rise of regional food. When I first started coming to India in 1995, and I was amazed at the diversity of food, because I, having come from Australia, thought that Indian food was what you got on an Indian restaurant menu, and I just expected it to be, the same all over. Like I just thought Indians were one, everybody's the same, right? Because I had no other understanding. So when I came here and I saw all this diverse food, I was just like, wow, this is amazing. But what was really surprising to me at that time was what I discovered was a lot of Indians weren't interested in their food. They liked what they ate and they thought their food was good, but they weren't. I actually had people say to me, why would you be interested in doing that? Why would you want to travel around India? And then they'd roll out stereotypes, like food in the south, idli dosa, or then the south, there's people in the north just eat lots of mutton, mutton curry, and Gujarati food sweet, and Bengalis eat fish, and there's a whole lot of stereotypes. And so there wasn't necessarily a huge interest in discovering regional food. which has completely changed. It's huge now. And so the things you're talking about, we were talking earlier about travel, how travel's an important part of that. But I think people have also been inspired to travel because of the access to social media and television programs, and there's so many television programs about traveling for food.
The one thing that has also helped propagate this is the migration of people. So people from
yes.
the north of India
Yeah.
move to south to work, people from the south move to west to work. So the thing is, when you go and live there and you actually eat what is made in those cities, that also opens your mind.
Yes.
How is the Indian food back in
Yeah.
Australia?
Okay, so just it's getting much better. There's an increasing awareness that India has regional food and that there's a lot of diversity, and that what we're getting in Indian restaurants is really not particularly representative of India. I mean, it's representative of a certain type of food, which is probably almost like Indian wedding food now. In that it's that kind of restaurant, Mughalai, North Indian thing. So that's changing. We're getting more diverse food.
Even for your book, you have interviewed many chefs in India, then food writers, then like food experts. Where do you see Indian food in next, say, 20 years?
So this is what I think is probably possible trajectory. I think that so the other big the other big impact is women, because basically India's food traditions have been maintained by women, and they've been doing it in homes. And most, and I only know this statistically, most meals that are eaten in India are still eaten, and this is across the board, are still eaten in homes, and they're still prepared by women. Now, I'm not saying there are no men cooking, but largely that's the... But as women's roles are changing, like women are going out to work more, women are getting more educated, and even women that don't need to work or whatever. One thing I've noticed is, the kiddie party. People used to have kiddie parties at home. Well, they're having them out, like they go out now and they have, whether they still have a kiddie, I don't know, but they're going out now. So women are going out of the home more, and they may not want to spend as much time cooking, or because they're working they don't have the time. But when I was talking to women, and I talked to a lot of women for the book, a number of them said, we're still, even though I work, I'm still expected to be responsible for putting the food on the table. So I think what's going to happen in homes is people are going to look for more convenience foods, time saving. So whether that's buying like I'm seeing a lot of pre-packaged, like even vegetable mixes where the veggies are all cut up. You go to the south, there's lots and lots of like pre-packaged, like idli dosa now, or even the filter coffee. That so there's lots of this. To the whole other extent of completely frozen meals, like Haldirams do a whole range now of frozen meals, and of course you've got food delivery. So people are getting whole meals. So I think what will happen is the food that people are eating every day at home, I think it'll get a bit more, unless you've got somebody who's dedicated to being in the kitchen and who wants to spend all that time. I think food will get a little bit more simplified in homes, just because people are busy. But there's also all those convenience things available to them. And if you're in the city and you're busy, that's probably because you're working, so you've got the means to be able to pay a bit more for convenience, right? So I think that's what will happen. But when people come out, they're going to want to eat this sort of food because it's going to remind them perhaps of the food that they grew up with or they had in their home. So more diversity, perhaps more seasonal. So that's my kind of, if one big trend I think will happen. The other thing that I've been saying it, and other people are saying it, I think you're going to get a lot more international chefs coming here and looking for ideas, and taking those back out, because everybody, vegan, having vegan stuff on the menu, being vegetarian, all that. It's a big deal now in if you've got a commercial food business, and where else to come to get ideas but here. So I think as that awareness of India's regionality goes out, and also social media and things have an influence, I think you'll get more people coming in and then taking ideas back out.
Sia Park is home to a large Bengali community. So you can see, like on this side, you get everything which you need to cook Bengali food.
Yes.
Every ingredients you get it here. Starting from puff rice or punch foran, or even the sweets like I don't know, we call it muri laddu, the puff rice laddu, then nariyal laddu, then kasundi, the mustard sauce. So those who have migrated from like Bengal, they kind of crave for their home cooked food or home style street food. So they come to this place to eat.
And that's why, even with the inroads that I suppose international food styles and international foods are making, those global foods that are coming into India, that's why this is not going to go away. People have such strong desire for their I suppose their home food, so that goes back to a bit to nostalgia as well. I mean, I feel a bit nostalgic about this market because 20 years ago I lived in this area for a while, and I would come here to buy seafood and vegetables. I wasn't necessarily cooking Bengali style food, so I even have a bit of nostalgia for this market. And this is the first place I actually tried mishti doi for the first time, and which is one of my favourite things.
So there's a difference between Delhi style golgappa and Kolkata style puchka. So in Delhi we make puchkas with golgappas with semolina. Here they're made up of wheat flour, and the water is also different. You want khatta or mitha, like sweet or tangy? Khatta.
Thank you.
And then the khatta pani is made up of imli, tamarind.
Did you have khatta or meeta?
Khatta. Next we can have meetha. एक मीठा दीजिएगा. बहुत ही उम्दा है. Which one you like?
The khatta.
Khatta? We'll have one more khatta. That's a proper experience of having golgappa.
Great.
दादा हमारे लिए झरना घी से बना दीजिए. मैंने खोल दिया है इसको. इसका खुशबू ही बड़ा अच्छा लगता है.
I mean, that's how you make crepes. You do that with.
So it's like a thin rice crepe.
Really good. Yum.
क्या बात है. बहुत बढ़िया बना हुआ है.
Notice how we've gone very quiet. It's very delicious. It's always a good sign. It's very delicious.
So this is a traditional regional food of Bengal, and it's very popular out here. And Mr. Tapan, आपको 25 साल हो गया ना? Since 25 years, he has been selling this dish, Mati Shapta.
Wow.
So the regional food still has a kind of a stronghold amidst the modern fusion dishes. Like,
oh, it'll never go away.
Yeah.
It'll just, things will blend in. I mean, maybe one day in the future he might have a different filling that is more, that might come out of a more, like different foodstuffs coming in, or he may not, but he could potentially, decide he's going to put a chocolate filling in. Or when I was in Surat, I went into this store, and it was like a massive snacks, like a Gujarati snacks supermarket, and they had a whole wall of krakra. That really thin wheat crisp that they have. I'm probably not saying it correctly. And there was Oreo flavour and nacho flavour and peri-peri flavour. So they're building those contemporary, those sort of global flavours into these really traditional foods. And then in the mithai store next door, they had like what I call barfi. In a whole, like they had chocolate and they had Oreo in that, and they had blueberry and all these kind of new flavours that they'd introduced, but into a traditional food. So there'll be more of that happening. So we could get a chocolate Oreo one of these in the future. I hope not, but
maybe Nutella stuff. But I will stick to the traditional one. एक वो बना खीर वाला. दादा मीठा चाय, वन विदाउट शुगर, एक बिना चीनी का, और एक विद शुगर, एक चीनी के साथ, ठीक है? इसमें बाहर में कुल्हड़ में.
I have a big one.
बिग वन, अच्छा बड़े वाले में बोला, दो बड़ा भर के. यहाँ बैठ जाए. I can sit here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
This is less sweet.
I think I prefer the other one. I like the texture of the coconut and the jaggery.
I've been doing street food walks in Delhi for past 13 years, and I'm a big time street food lover. In fact, all of us love street food.
Yes, yeah.
So what is your opinion about street food in India?
Well, I mean, you've covered so much of it. I'm not even going to attempt to do it. But what I think street food represents is it represents people's desire to have familiar food. So here we're in Delhi, but we're in an area that's got a big Bengali community. Yeah. So all the street food here is representative of what you would get in Calcutta or elsewhere in Bengal. So I think what street food does is represent that desire for home food. I mean, I was talking to you before about maybe in the future we might see some different ingredients coming into street food, but that hasn't happened yet. Like all the street food here is pretty much what it would have been 10, 15 years ago, and I think it's because it does represent that people wanting familiarity, wanting some home food. And we also across the afternoon talked about how it's a great kind of social leveller, street food. Like people of all different backgrounds will come and have it. It's inexpensive, anybody can afford it. It gets people out of the house because it is on the street. So I think that to me is what I take away from it, rather than any particular dish. I mean, you've covered so much, so as I say, I've got no idea about as many dishes as you would. So that's what I think it's important. And there are people who, for example, during like in the middle of the day, like a lot of office workers get their lunch from street food stalls, particularly in big cities like Delhi or Mumbai, Calcutta. So it serves I think it serves a social purpose. I think it serves a cultural purpose as well.
Yeah. And I think it's also about the livelihood of the people.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also about now we see it more as a source of entertainment. People go out on the streets, like say recently we had Ramzans. And you would have seen if you've gone to Old Delhi, people were just coming there to eat street food.
Yeah.
So it has become a source of entertainment as well in metro cities.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, it definitely serves a livelihood purpose. I mean, look at some of these like street vendors. They're so compact with moving their thank you. With moving, thank you. With moving their, they've got their whole kit up set. They can put it on the back of a bike or on the back of a motorbike, and they're really efficient with it and earn a livelihood. So yeah, so it serves that purpose as well. And I don't think it's going away. We don't have any street food in Australia of any particular note. Now, the reason we don't has to do also with a lot of rules, like a lot of rules about even about food hygiene and people being on footpaths and things. So it'll be interesting to see in the future if that sort of thing impinges on people's capacity to run street food stalls in a city like Delhi. That can be what could be more of a threat to it than anybody not wanting to eat it.
So we started our day with tea. Now we are ending with masala chai.
It's delicious. Cheers. Oh my goodness me! I can drink gallons of it.
Dada, chai khub bhalo.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to end by saying that this book is a great read as it delves deep into India's contemporary food scene, and it also unravels the various forces transforming what, where, how Indians are producing, trading and eating their food. And it also connects India to the outer world. So thank you, Charmaine, for coming on this food walk.
Definitely, I had a really great day. It was really interesting. We've had some great conversations. So thank you very much for doing this. And thank you to the behind the scenes people that nobody can see, who have been working much harder than anybody today. So I'm pretty tired. I don't know about you guys, but thank you so much. And thank you, Anubhav. It's been a great day. Thank you.